Welcome to the Daily MBA, where business wisdom is served fresh and fast, straight from one of the top MBA programs in the world. I'll give you summaries of my lectures and readings, as well as the most important insights gained from an MBA, so you can apply all of this knowledge in every business. Let's get started. On today's episode, I'll continue talking about marketing and creating value. In my last episode, I was telling you some basic things that you should need to understand about all of the value that we're delivering to clients or to the company when we are creating a new product. The first important concept were the value drivers. The second one was all of the customer value that's related to the benefits and the costs of a product. Then the third one was the value to customer versus the value of the customer. Then we also had the value propositions, and lastly, we also had growth strategies. So if you're feeling kind of lost in today's episode, I would recommend going back and checking out those. But once you understand them, now let's start diving into the 3 fundamental marketing principles and understand what each one of them may bring to our company. The first principle is always going to be know your customers. And this one may sound simple, but it's going to hold a lot of power because you must understand what your customers' value drivers are. And this is what I was talking about in my previous episodes, but basically products, all of the products or services that you may sell are not going to be a set of attributes put together. They are going to be solutions for delivering customer value. And if your product or service is going to be doing this, you must first understand all of the benefits and costs that the product is going to be providing to your customer. If you don't know your customers, if you don't know what they value, and you don't know how much weight they're putting into all of these value drivers, all of your efforts are going to be useless. Because if your product doesn't have any real value to the customers, then it won't succeed. So first principle, very important, know your customers. The second principle, it's also going to be crucial, and it's know your competitors. And many people think all of this is done through market research or market analysis. How I was mentioning in my last class, you can do lots of different techniques for doing market analysis and competitors analysis. But the problem that some companies may have is that usually they stop at the direct competitors. And this is a problem because competing products are those that are going to be satisfying the same needs as the product or service that you're selling. And most of the times, customers aren't really looking at one alternative, but they may be looking for different ways to satisfy the same need. So you should also be considering those. One example may be a car that's going to be looking into competing cars that are also in the market. But something that you would bring up as another perspective would be, what if we also consider bikes? What if we also consider public transportation or even walking? Because that may be a direct competitor of a car. If someone doesn't have to go to a car and just walk, that's going to be filtering out some of the value drivers that people have. If someone wants to ride a bike because this is going to be more eco-friendly, then this person is going to be a better target for an EV than any other type of vehicle. So you have to start looking for all of the possible alternatives that your customers are using in order to satisfy their need, and not just the direct competitors, because if you're only looking at those, you might be blinded and you might not even be knowing what to look for. So open up your research analysis and do a broader competitors research. That is going to be the second principle, know your competitors. Now, the third principle would be know your company. And this one is some that usually also companies don't really do, but it's going to be very important. Because the only way to succeed in any product or service is going to be creating something that satisfies the value drivers that we identify in our principle number 1, but it has to do it better than our competitors. This is going to be principle number 2. If your company or your own business doesn't have the capability of doing this, satisfying value drivers and doing it better than competitors, then you shouldn't even bother going into there, because the product's attributes should be always delivering at least the same amount of value to the customers, if not more. Of course, it would be ideal if you can deliver even more, because this is going to later help you into the positioning and all of this value creation part. But the first step would be just knowing what you're capable of and what your company can do when you're comparing yourself with your competitors and with your ability to satisfy the customer's needs. So this would be the third principle, know your company. And if we were to summarize these 3 principles with simple words, they would be customers, competitors, and company. And this, I didn't make it up, it's a framework that's called the 3 C's, and it's perfect for doing an environmental analysis. And this is going to be extremely useful, not only for developing new products, but for existing products, because companies should keep doing these types of analysis even with their existing products, just so they avoid what's called the marketing myopia. Myopia is usually this thing that you have in your eyes where you can only see things that are near you and you can't see far away. Well, basically, marketing myopia is going to be the same. It's a short-sighted focus that you have on selling products because you believe your product is so wonderful that every customer should have it. And just because you're focused on that, you are not looking into customers and you're not looking into their needs. And this usually leads to failure as you're neglecting the changing needs of the customers. If we look into our history of businesses that have failed, it's probably going to be related to this. They weren't just companies that were trying something new. They were very big companies such as Kodak, but they were too focused in their amazing product, and they weren't doing this environmental analysis to see that competitors were changing their trends. They were changing their value drivers, or they were looking for different ways to satisfy their needs that were in the direct competition. And maybe since all of this was happening, the company wasn't looking and wasn't able to provide more value than the one that was existing already. So always consider these 3 things in mind: customers, competitors, and company, and remember to do it regularly in order to ensure a better strategy that you're going to have in the future. That summarizes the first marketing principle that I wanted to teach you, but after this one comes the fun part, because all of this just is a market analysis, external analysis of customers, and an internal analysis of the company. But then, if we were to look into what comes next, we would have the value creation part. And this one is going to be summarized by a framework that's called STP, which is going to be the one that we're going to be looking into next time. And it's going to be very useful, especially if you're going to be developing a new product or are eager to see how the markets are going to be reacting to something new. So make sure to check that out. And also, share my episode with some of your friends if you think what I'm telling you might be useful for them. I'll see you next week.